Yeah. But Tom, you budget, John, triple raise. I don't know what the name was. Johnny, triple raise.
I need a quad.
Seems like a whole new board is because I'm.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, let's, I'd like to call to order the, town of Mendon. Oh, no. Let's call together the Town of Mendon Planning Board meeting for, today, Wednesday, September 7th, 2022. The first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of our August 17th meeting. Anybody have any comments, additions, subtractions, anything that they would like to add to those minutes? Nope. Okay, would someone like to make a motion that we accept those minutes? Thank you, Charlie. And a second? A second. Okay, thank you, Nicole. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Any abstain? No. Okay, next we will move on to the Moore site plan. I don't think we have a representative for this tonight.
Was there not, was that the plan? Did we hear from them?
All along, originally they submitted it as a subdivision, so they had a sign, an affidavit turned in, I emailed, I have not spoken to the applicant ever, I'm handling it through the company that it's using, lovely gentleman. And I sent a follow-up confirmation email to them.
Okay, so I guess we can look at this, talk about it, and it's going to be a little more difficult without representation, but we'll figure this out. Okay, so Robert Moore, 968 Mile Square Road, Pittsburgh, New York, to construct a garage forward of the house zoned RA5, that's the count number, blah, blah, blah. So, anyway, so moving forward, we have his application here. And I know that some things came up as we were reviewing and talking about it. We noticed that possibly it has, it encroaches on an EPOT 5, which means that it's within 500 feet of a historic building. And I think that's where we wanted to start with our conversation. So did anybody want to add anything to that? Do you have anything that you'd like to add? To talk about, to start our conversation about that?
Yeah, we did get feedback late in the week from the Historic Preservation Board on that. Apparently, there were some revisions to the EPOT 5, so it probably doesn't
Right.
fall within that. However, I still think we have an obligation to discuss certain items, the architectural, character of the building that's going up. It'd be nice to have some more information about the materials that it's using. Height of the building would be good. The relationship to the house, I don't have a problem with. I'm actually glad that it's detached from the house, quite a distance. There is a discrepancy that I saw with the footprint that's sketched on the plan versus what was provided to us. So I'd like clarification on that. That would be good to get. Also, some screening would be nice. There are pine trees on the site, but it would be good to suggest, I think, if we could fill in some of those gaps, maybe with, I'm not considering a berm or anything drastic because I know there's already landscaping on the site. We could have just some more pine trees possibly, that would help a lot. It's a utility building, so I think it's, and it would look like it's kind of, looks like it's off on its own in this portion of the lot. So something to ground the building would be nice. So if we could get more information, I guess, on the landscaping that they're planning, I think that would be helpful, and materials and some more accurate dimensions.
Right, and I think, even though there is some question about this EPOD and whether it pertains to this particular project or not, I do think it would be, we would be doing our due diligence if we had the HPC take a look at it.
Yeah.
Just to report back to us, just let us know what they think, what they think about screening. I mean, just to get another opinion on the project.
Yeah.
So, is there anything anyone else would like to add?
I'd like to know what the area is of the total lot. This would be a 2% lot coverage.
Okay.
There's 2 lots, I think. Total of 13 acres. Combined together originally. The total lot should be on the original.
Here's this big pond in the front. House is back here. He's talking about adding this barn way over here.
17.8 acres.
Up there.
Item
Okay.
6.
All right,
Do we know if this is a listed site or not? Does anyone know?
It's
for
on
sure?
the top. Across the street is the Moore House, which is on the national register, not on a local register.
Okay, okay, so it is listed.
It's
National.
listed, yeah. on the national.
And this says, I guess I want to look and see if our code makes that distinction. I don't know if it does. Between local or non-local sites.
I didn't see
Yeah,
it.
this says here that the purpose of our historic pod is to minimize impacts on historic structures, et cetera, which are listed on federal, state, or local registers. So you said it's federal, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so, and then it says delineation of the boundaries. They shall be translating no further than 500 feet from the limits of a listed site. The HPC may determine the limits based on a number of factors. But I don't know if those limits are plotted definitively or if they're dynamic. I don't know. We have like a map or,
the EPOD 5 lists a 500-foot buffer.
okay,
So I think that's pretty cut and dry.
yeah, so you would think then that, well, this says up to 500 feet.
Right, this is within that 500 feet. This, the barn, where they're proposing the barn.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it does, I think they would have the jurisdiction to look at it for
to
sure.
take a look at it. Okay,
Yeah,
I think it would be, I don't know if this is protocol or not, but we could cite that section in the town code so that they are aware, I guess, that national items on the national register would come into play in our opinion. If you know, what I mean, I don't know if that's
right.
customary.
who makes that reference to the HPC? Actually, okay,
I can do it, I'll do it tomorrow. I can
Yes, you-
send it. They meet next week anyway, so there will be time.
so just, if you want to write this note down, Katrina, we're referring it pursuant to one, given 138-27, which provides that pods include sites listed on federal, state, or local registers.
138:27.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it includes federal, state, or local designations. And then I don't know if you would want to, I would hesitate to bring this back without knowing whether the applicant's going to show up next time, because we need to be able to talk to them about architecture.
Right, there's lots of, like, so really this is kind of just, we can have the HBC take a look at it, but really there's nothing else we can do right now. And, we can't really add them to another agenda for another meeting until we know that there's going to be representation here. So, I know you've done the best that you can do, so I guess that, would the procedure now be, would you, send them a letter and let them know that no action is taken? And,
Can I make a suggestion? Yeah, so we have a meeting coming up in 2 weeks, right?
mhm,
You have, September 21st, if there's,
And then, okay, then maybe a follow-up sometime. My suggestion would be offered, they have their application in. I don't see why they couldn't be at the next meeting if they were available.
I will call, there's a business card at the front of that, and that's the gentleman that I've been speaking with. It's Staples. I put it in the front of his file.
okay,
Yeah, I think,
Whom I've been dealing with, I've never met.
I think if you put them on the agenda, we're already having a meeting anyways. If they don't show up, we don't do anything.
okay,
If they do show up, we have the HPC recommendation, then we can do some more.
this sounds like a plan. You got that? You're on?
Take care of it tomorrow.
Okay. So we'll put this away. And moving right along. The next item on our agenda is the Battersea Subdivision and Battle Site Plan This is a public hearing, so, I guess we'll open the public hearing then, is that what we do now? Or do
Have
we
them present
present first and then open? Okay. So. Yeah. And you're Glenn, right?
I am Glenn. Are you
Glenn
ready for
Thornton?
me?
Huh?
Are you ready for me?
We are here for you.
I'll babble a little bit here for you then. Yeah, my name is Glenn Thornton with Thornton Engineering, the engineer for the applicants. And what's being proposed is further subdivision of the Patterson parcel on Taylor and Miles Square Road to create 3 new code compliant building lots. So 2 of the lots will be developed by Charlie and Steve Battle Construction Company, who's with me. We also have the owner of the parent parcel, Scott Batterson, here with us. We've got all the experts, all the knowledge. Hopefully we can answer all your questions tonight. But that is the game plan, is to create 3 new lots. The Battle site plan is to develop 2 of the 3 lots to build single-family residences on each lot that would be sold. You don't have any buyers for either of the houses yet. One lot has a buyer. So, I mean, their game plan is to begin construction this year on one of the lots to get the home under construction. But basically, it'll be either a 3 or 4 bedroom home. We have tested the site for the wastewater treatment system with the health department. They have, they're ready to sign off on the plans pending approval by the town. These will be served with private water wells. Everything else is code compliant. We did receive comments from the town engineer, which we responded to. Sent the letter out, I think, yesterday. I don't know if Jason's had a chance to look at it. We didn't see any major comments there. Corey Gates had comments on the project. We addressed the comments that Corey had on the site plans, but he had a number of other comments about the overall subdivision, which I'm sure the board has some questions about. Hopefully we can answer that. Conservation Board, there are EPODs on the parent parcel, which have not yet been shown on the subdivision map. That's something we've talked to the surveyor, and he will add that information to the subdivision map before it's finalized. But who else commented on it? I think that's it. I know there was one letter from a neighbor that was submitted about the subdivision of the land, and if there's any questions about that, any information we can provide to help address that, we'll do our best.
Does anybody want to start with any questions regarding that? I was just looking for Corey's comments here. That's what I'm kind of digging for. So I thought I had them right here.
I see a space between the lots for the 3rd lot. That's where the future road that would eventually be in there.
Well, Scott would like 100-foot separation between those lots for a future road, a future driveway. I'm not sure if it would be a dedicated road. That might end up being a private roadway to serve more than one lot in the back. And I think that's what you had shown on your preliminary sketch plan that was submitted.
Do you have a topo of the rest of that farm, the land for where the water drainage is?
We do, and we didn't survey the whole parcel, but Monroe County has mapping available online, LiDAR mapping, which is very accurate, especially in areas like this that are mostly farmed and open land. So we do have the contours. We do know where the water drains.
But it's not shown on here.
It's not shown on this plan. Typically on a subdivision map, I don't think you'd show topography on it. I mean, we could, if you'd like to see that. It's easy. All the information is available, and we could plop it on there along with the EPODs to kind of show the drainage patterns on land. The development we have on these 2 lots, we're not changing the drainage patterns. We're probably increasing the amount of runoff a small amount, because now we have some impervious surfaces. We're trying to intercept drainage across lots and route it out to the roadside swale.
Right. But but we would probably want to see that then, I'm thinking on there.
Well,
You said, you do show it on the site plans?
it's shown on the site plan, and to be honest, I'm really not sure how the remainder of the parcel will end up being developed. I know Scott has some thoughts about it. I'm not sure if you really know what's going to happen with it. A dedicated roadway to create a number of lots in the back would be very expensive, and you have to bring water down to it, and I'm not sure if that's gonna happen.
Okay, so we dug through our files because this property does have about, an 8-year history. And we did see a conceptual thing that Scott had put together, showing 23 lots. So you can imagine with this opening here and still not sure what he is going to do with this, we want to make sure that if this ends up being a viable plan down the road, we want to make sure that we've got the right infrastructure to support that. So we see what he wants to do today, and that is not a huge deal, but going down the road, we're concerned that maybe if he decides to put in a bigger subdivision, that it won't be, what do I want to say? You won't be able to account for it if you're only doing 2 lots today, 2 lots next year, a lot the year after. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do, and we thought about that too, and the way the parcel is being developed, I think he's going about it the right way. Most people would not develop this way. They would start developing the lots closest to public water first and electric first, up in this area. But we're actually, this is the roads here. So this area here is the wetland and the water course. So it's really not being able to be developed. But actually, he started at the far end of the subdivision with the development, kind of working his way towards civilization where there is water and everything. So I think what we're proposing right now would not impact any future plans.
so now there is water on Hopper Hills in that subdivision right there off Mile Square. Do you know how far?
This one?
No, in that subdivision, well, it doesn't show it on the plan, but there is a subdivision off of Mile Square and it has public water.
Correct.
Right. So have you guys considered or thought about what it would take to bring that water to lot number 5 and number 4?
Unfortunately, I'm not here representing the subdivider. I'm not here representing Scott. Even though we have submitted the subdivision plan, he had a different surveyor working on that. And that's why I brought Scott here. I think he'd be the better one to answer some of these questions.
That's completely fine. He sent a letter saying that you were able to represent him on this, and that's why,
Correct.
where some of these questions are, why they're being thrown right
I
at you.
won't say anything that I think.
You don't want to
better
speak on
hear
his
him
behalf.
say it. I would be spending a lot of his money.
Well, you're welcome to come up and answer some of the questions.
Right.
Hi.
Great to meet you. Thanks for having me. So Glenn is the expert by trade. He's the engineer and very familiar with the matrix behind subdividing lots and everything that goes into that. But I, of course, will answer any questions that I can to support the project and see it take course and continue forth.
Are you comfortable right now letting us know what your maybe 10-year plan on this property is, looking out?
Absolutely. So you may also have a phase 1 map somewhere.
I think I did see that somewhere, yes.
Right, and that's just developing 8 frontage lots along the 2 roads of Mile Square and Taylor. And the reason that you have that max density concept map is really asked to me when we subdivided the Clark's lot. So it's a kind of to support the future of who knows what, but ultimately, I think my 10-year plan, knowing I've got a family and I'm HFL native, HFL grad, love it here, it would be to move my family and possibly build on the property boundary line of Miles Square and going back to what you're referring to as public water, off Hopper Hills Way. It's approximately 1,000 feet that the public water line would have to move to supply the first lot on Miles Square. And it's expensive at, about $40 a foot, 40,000 just to supply the one lot with water. But
And and I don't mean to interrupt, but are you
Right.
talking about the one lot being lot number 4 or 5? Or is it this one at the corner, this number 8?
it would be 8,
Okay.
yes, yes.
All right, so it would be 1,000 feet to get the water
1,000
to
feet,
there.
Yeah, so 40,000. So we'll see, because it's not about, what I'm thinking I may do. Although to get back to the root of the question, I think all I'm going to do in my lifespan is develop 8 lots along Miles Square and Taylor with the assistance of engineers such as Glenn Thornton, who will likely head up the project from here on. And then my wife and I were blessed with a beautiful baby girl, and maybe she'll inherit it, and we'll see type of thing. As far as if my child, possibly children, that later in life, if they want to have options to put a private drive or a dedicated road in, that's why we have the concept map to see, well, this could come about, and God knows when in time.
Right, so, but your initial plan is this phase 1 to get all the way through to lot number 8 up here within the next couple of years, or?
We'll see. There's a lot of factors outside of my control, so I can't really put a specific time frame. But you had mentioned we're 7 years into the conception of maintaining ownership, and we've done 1 lot. So I don't know. My pace is not as fast as developers or anything like that.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna just stop talking here for a minute because I'm sure someone else must have something that they want, another question or something else that they want to add to this discussion.
I don't have Corey's comments.
I don't have Corey's
But
comments
you
either.
mentioned the weekly easements, which I thought was a smart comment. But I don't know the rest of the comment.
I don't know either. I know. I was looking too and I didn't see it.
Is it the one that came through today?
No, that was for the more stuff. Or more, not subdivision.
Right.
I didn't have Corey's comments, but I know that we did have comments. I just. did not.
Look it up on my computer.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you for doing that. Okay. So while you're busy doing that, does anyone else have a question? Earl, any questions?
I would still like to see the topo on the whole property, so we know where the water is headed for.
Where the water's going? I
Where
know
the water's
that's
going,
a great
remaining on the
concern.
property. I see homeowners, somebody buying here, and we approved a lot, and it's flooding this way. We have nothing to show why we approved this lot and the protection of the people on this lot. So I think this is the why that. Which would determine where you're gonna put the swales on the back to catch the water. That's all.
Okay, we have tried to show the grading such as you're explaining on the site plans for these lots. But it sounds like you're looking for
From lot 8 all the way through.
to add contours and grading plan or.
Basically contour. You
Okay,
don't need a grading plan, contours, because we're gonna see with that contour, whether or not we have to redirect and put swales around these lots.
Right. Now, you're referring to a contour map for the entire master parcel?
Yes, yes.
And you're aware that, I've made progress of 1 subdivided lot in the last 7 years, and
Yeah.
I really have no plans to go beyond 8. All right. Now, I'm sorry to ask, but would we be able to get an approval contingent on this map being provided in the near distant future, just to keep our tight schedule of time moving along? We need to keep things moving here for battle construction as well as for engineering and, I just am keeping an eye on the overall time of, when we started talking about dividing these other parcels, to battle construction. So I'm just curious if we can do this as a contingent approval, just so we can, expedite the process and we don't, lose time of rescheduling another hearing in 2 to 3 or 4 weeks, whatever that time frame is.
So at this point, that's only one of the things that was my concern. I don't know. what the
Yeah, I
other
understand.
concerns would be.
But there is a possibility of a contingent approval likely on the topo map, just if there's no other major concerns, which I can't imagine there would be. We're fitting the density requirement. We're a little generous on that size of each subdivided lot over an acre. So, and anybody driving around the area, I know you guys are a lot of you are local, you'll see that there's a nice creek, the wetlands, the pod, that's way down low, and there is a nice graded slope or whatever where water goes down, and being that it is farmed, that probably helps a little bit with allowing the water to go deep into the soil because it's cared for by Maravihu. And I will also add that the percolation test came out for just a standard septic system, so it's not a concern at all of water flow from a perk test perspective.
I did have a question, and I think maybe you can answer it for us, Jason, or give us some background. So I see a lot of houses, one next to the other, 8 of them eventually all in a row here. And if they are all serviced by wells, will that number of wells impact the volume of water that each house receives?
Yeah, that's not something I could provide you. They have to do well tests. That's something I could give you an answer for tonight.
Right.
One thing, if I may offer this to the board, I would be concerned about is the stormwater impacts that Corey, the code enforcement officer, mentioned in his letter in terms of segmental development of the lots. And I think Glenn would probably be aware that SWIP requirements force you to take into consideration the full development as it might be built out. So if you're going to disturb more than 5 acres, which would appear that with these 8 lots you are approaching upon doing it now, would require stormwater practices such as rain gardens, ponds, things of that nature to account for additional runoff. And seeing that one lot has already been developed, the lots, the next 2 lots that we're considering tonight are being supposed to be built upon. There's a significant amount of disturbance on those as well. We might already be close to that 5-acre threshold.
Right. Sorry, but to address that, there is a strong possibility my wife and I will be building within the next 5 years. And when we do that, we plan to do it on the mile square property boundary line, and we'll move the public water. So it won't be a concern of the multiple wells and anything like that.
Oh, okay. So before you're thinking before you built out those other homes, you would be building there? And
Oh,
then
yeah,
you would pull the water to and then they could
Right,
connect.
and so on and so forth. So we're essentially going to be one of the 8 frontage lots, and I can't tell you what the future holds as far as what's going to be subdivided and when we'll be in front next, because it's really just the here and now. But there's a possibility that the next lot would be the corner lot of Miles Square and Taylor, and then more than likely, I believe that Michelle, my wife that is, and I will be ready to tackle the project of building our own house, which would involve moving the water line to, I'm going to call it lot 1. I don't know what it is on your map.
Is lot 1 the one that's already developed?
think you're
No,
talking
that's,
about
so
lot
it's
8.
lot 8.
Okay, lot 8. Okay.
So, yeah, lot 8, and then it would be 7-6 could tap into that water line because it's only going to be a matter of moving it a few hundred feet versus 1,000+ feet. But it is ungodly expensive. to move public water, $40 a foot, 1,000 feet, 40,000. That doesn't include the cost of moving the gas line, which is also $40 a foot. And that can't be blended in with the 40,000 to move the water line. It's completely separate. So if we wanted gas and water, you're looking at 80,000 just to, supply that one lot. So, so we may just go with propane, and we, I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to speak of the future because, like I had said before, there's so many factors outside of our control that I just don't want to lock myself into anything. But I do know that Glenn's plan here to subdivide these 3 parcels is very doable, and it's within, everything that it's supposed to be as far as, rules, regulations, etc. But I'll let Glenn, answer questions. I was just saying it's unlikely that there's going to be 8 lots with 12. It's extremely unlikely.
Let me just add something on the disturbance. I understand what Jason is saying as part of the overall plan of a residential subdivision that's disturbing more than 5 acres. Yes, we're into the full stormwater management requirements and Speedy's permit. But you can see it's difficult at this point in time to know what's going to happen with the remainder of the lot. So I will suggest in consideration and in an attempt to better address stormwater runoff from these lots, what we've done on other projects is instead of just discharging water onto the adjacent lot into the roadside swale, we direct as much impervious surface as we can into dry wells, infiltrators, something to get it back into the ground, which is what the DEC would like to say. See, it's not really compliant with their stormwater management criteria per se, but it's a way that we can reduce the amount of runoff because we really don't know where a stormwater pond would be created. We really wouldn't have the ability to create a stormwater pond within these lots that we're developing. It would have to be in some other part of the subdivision. And really to collect, I think it's a good idea to get the contours on subdivision maps so we can see where water's going. I mean, it's going to be obvious from our site plans where the water's going on these lots, but the remainder of the subdivision, you can get a feel for the drainage patterns. But again, it would be very, very difficult right now to really devise a viable stormwater management scheme that these lots could tie into. That's why I'm saying we would be fine with putting in some subsurface discharge and a dry well infiltrator, something just to reduce the amount of runoff from these sites, pending other development, which might lead itself to a full-blown stormwater management area.
Jason, what are your thoughts?
I think that's a reasonable option. Like they have a little bit more discussion. Maybe after the meeting.
After the meeting to discuss that a little bit further.
You have 20 foot of fill across those 2 lots, trying to put a fall across those 2 lots to the upper side of the septic system property next to the Clark subdivision. I was asking for the whole site. Yes, the soil is very pervious, but it's not very pervious in the wintertime. The spring. Just don't want. The pole here, but just bought that house over here. And the next spring, it's flooded. And we approved a lot, allowed all that water to come over to her property. So.
This is
Okay.
definitely.
Well,
a
I'm saying
concern.
that's where the water goes now.
I
And
know.
what we would do for the amount of increased runoff that we would be creating, we would just take that water into a system to discharge it into the ground instead of sheet flow. I'm not saying we're
No,
gonna
it's-
help this situation. I've been out there after a couple big rainstorms and the water it does drain down into this area, but it quickly dissipates because of the soils there. And we didn't really notice any of the runoff from the farm fields onto the Clark property. And in spite of what Scott said, farm fields are the worst for controlling runoff. I mean, you have so much bare areas. Lawns are the best. You get a lawn, you're going to get a lot less runoff from an area because it's denser. It stops the water flow. Fields, before the soybeans came up, a couple of the storms, you could see a lot of sediment washing down off the fields. And, once you get lawns, and you won't see that anymore. I know that because we had dug some perk holes and they perked great down in this area for this field. We came back after storm, they didn't perk very well at all. And it's because all the sediment, the silts on top washed down into those holes from the storm. So we went a little deeper with them and they were fine, cleaned them out. But I think we'll improve the situation down here. We're not gonna make it any worse for sure.
Charlie, got anything for us?
I'm just thinking that, that's all fine and good, but it's a little vague, and I think, for you to move forward, I think that a lot of this would have to be shown in a drawing and what you would propose, instead of just saying, well, we could possibly do a dry well. That makes it hard on us.
I mean, we would just add some dry wells to the project for the downspouts.
Well, at some point that will have to be shown.
Correct. I mean, as a condition, we would add that to the plan, some dry wells to collect the roof drains. I mean, we'll do whatever you want. I just don't think there will be a lot to look at there. It's really not going to change the plan at all. It'll just show the locations of the dry wells.
I think the board's having a hard time looking at this as a couple more lots when we know the 5 or 10 year plan, when we know the whatever 10 or 20 year plan, whatever the major concept is. And what's the point where we start to see this as a major subdivision instead of just a few lots here and there, right? That's the challenge that we're trying to deal with. And so if we just keep adding a lot, add a lot here, add a lot there, at some point, we're gonna have a bunch of lots. We're not gonna have subdivision infrastructure. We're just gonna have a bunch of individual lots infrastructure, right? That's the balance that is difficult to strike, given the order of development you've chosen here. And given the fact that we have a sketch plan that shows this as a major subdivision.
Right, so if I can address that, because Glenn is representing the developers, but I'm here representing myself as a landowner. And I've owned this property for about 7 years, and I by no means have the deep pockets that a developer or others, in this community may have. And that's a lot of the reason why, so little progress in perspective of this becoming, a housing development or anything for that matter. It's been, farm field since, God's creation of time, and more than likely the master partial is going to remain that way because, there's incentives for the agricultural exemption, and, I grew up across the road and I am a fan of open land. But as a defense of you guys, I will mention anytime we think about doing anything, we're going to be here because there's no getting around it. So I can tell you that, in all honesty, I don't believe I'm ever going to subdivide over 8 partials. And for me to even say I'm going to be able to subdivide 8 in the next 10 years could be ambitious, knowing I've done 1 in 7 years. So I think what I'm saying here is a lot of the things you guys are asking for are going to exhaust my budget to the point that I'm going to just, go back to the way I'm living now, and nothing's going to happen. And that's a defeat because you're going to not get taxes from potential houses, but I can't fund, a lot of this future development, nor do I want to, as far as major engineering costs and future that is likely never going to happen. I definitely can't, answer for an 8-month-old of anything of what her plans would be. Lord willing, she's in the great state of New York and wants to, try to break even or make a little bit of money, but I don't think it's necessary to really focus on anything beyond 8 frontage lots because it's never gonna happen. It just, one, I'll just go back to my old and you won't see me, it's just gonna be farm field, and unfortunately, you might crush my dream of being able to develop the first lot, which is lot 8 on this map. And that's why I bought the land. I grew up across the road, I just looked at it. We had a nice new house, my brother and I, but I think you need to keep your request for information, within a scope of decency, knowing the extreme costs. And really all I'm doing is 8 lots, and if anything ever happens with us subdividing anything in addition to these 3 off the master partial, you're gonna see us again. And I might have a little more steam, to meet requests at that point as far as capital or money. But right now, I don't. And that'll have a specific time frame. They have somebody lined up. And I don't mean to call the elephant in the room, but interest rates have gone up like, God, doubled in a year's time. So we need to respect people that aren't even here today, trying to create their dreams of building, and it's not really just my wife and I, it's, the Battle Construction, they're representing very healthy, good people. So that's all. I just ask that, you kind of respect the request for information, not only from the time frame perspective, but also the cost. Like it can add up. And that's why I am so fortunate to line up with Battle Construction, who's fronting a lot of this money to empower Mr. Thornton to do his job well. But there's limitations with everything as far as capital is concerned, time is concerned. So I just ask that you, understand that it's very easy to make requests of things, but me, just as I'm a mail carrier, I don't make much money. I don't have much money. I can't do.
And I
a
think
lot
that
of
we
stuff.
can all, we're all there. We've all been there. My husband and I built our house. It's kind of the same, like on a shoestring budget with I got it. I know it's expensive and it is a big undertaking. So please don't think that we're trying, so we're not trying to diminish that at all. I think what we really are very concerned about, where all the stormwater is going to go. The public water, yes, I mean, that is a concern. It's not as strong of a concern as the stormwater really is. And regardless of whether you develop all the way back into that lot, these 8 lots right here are going to be affected by the stormwater. And we want to make sure that, in the end, you're protected also, that, you want to build a house here too. You don't want to build your house and then have other people start building around you and all of a sudden it's not working for you either. I mean, we're just trying to make sure that.
No, that's good, but, and I'm not trying to, not grant any of your requests, and we'll work with you, because we do want to see this project through and keep everybody happy, but I think a good illustration of water flow and everything else would be, Mr. Gates's property across the street, the neighbor to him, and then the 2 new houses along Taylor. And there's no wet basements or any complications or anything. And, that's less than a stone's throw. So everything can come together, but, just me asking for everything is kind of like, we're gonna get it there, we're gonna make it to the finish line, but
Have you ever
It's
submitted
gonna
a
work.
site plan that shows the 8 lots delineated?
no, I haven't submitted a site development or site plan for 8 lots, just because it's expensive, even just to pay the recreational fees when you're creating the tax IDs and it all
I guess
adds
what
up.
I'm looking for is your own thoughts of what you're thinking, even if it's just throwing a piece of trace paper over your existing drawing
Or
here.
is it this?
I think it's this.
It's a portion of
It's a portion of that. The 8 lots are on
2017.
the
I
front.
think I would like to see a clean drawing that shows your 8 lots that you're suggesting.
So
or that
I
you're
have,
hoping to get.
I'll leave you with this. I did bring that 8 lot concept plan, which I'll refer to as phase 1, and pretty much essentially the only plan. Because the max density plan, you know, that was really a request of Mendon, and it's one of those things of we'll see. Now,
Yeah.
I've only brought with me 2 copies, so I'm gonna leave one with Glenn. I think he's already got it, but I'll pass this along and you guys can all, you know, review it, make copies and have it on file.
I think another thing we might be a little bit leery of is that 100 feet. You keep saying nothing's ever going to happen back there.
Right. So an engineer did draw up the max concept plan, and the value of the land as a whole would be defeated if I didn't leave right of ways. The requirement for a private drive is 100 feet. I believe it's 60 feet for a dedicated road. There's potential for 4 stem lots off the private drive, and then a dedicated road, no limit. But the reason why we came up with the spacing of what it is I was asked upon creating lot 1 to come up with that max density concept plan. And somebody with great knowledge, you know, realizes that you don't want to like box yourself into the corner, you know, to only have farmland for the rest of the eternity of this land. So that's why there's, you know, the 100 feet right of ways or access points, just because nobody, you know, knows what the future holds. And we just want to be able to keep an open door to, you know, God knows whatever, you know, might happen in hundreds of years to come.
And if it comes to that, if this were to come to fruition back here, we will want to have known that we have the proper infrastructure in place related to these 8 lots and how it'll would
Right,
affect the
and I
back
can
property. So if we,
appreciate that. And I'll work with you within reason, but I'm just hoping that some of the requests for information aren't going to, you know, push me over the edge. I just don't have the money. But the only thing I will say is, it's hard for me because this is a massive piece of land. You know, it's just shy of 80 acres. And all we're really talking about is creating 3 new tax IDs, just over an acre each. And, you know, for me to have to draw lines on paper really adds up. And then, you know, we don't know the placement of these houses. And the truth is, I bought this big parcel because I'm a fan of open space and, you know, it's beautiful in Mendon. And I really don't think I'll get past 8 lots. And a lot of the reasons besides, of course, just the fact that I love being a landowner, it's the reason I don't think I'll get past developing, you know, this 8 lot thing is cost. Like, it can look very glamorous to be a developer. When you actually get the pen and paper down, it takes real money to, you know, kind of keep a business open and keep it moving. And I'm just not born into that kind of like wealth to be able to, you know, want to have that drive to make a huge development. It's not going to happen. And then to ask, you know, for it, it's hard because again, it's 80 acres. So many lots could be created. We've got the concept plan of approximately 26, I believe it was. And yeah, I really can't, you know, spend 20, 30 grand to position imaginary houses and do water low runoff on all those what ifs. And I'm telling you from my heart's hearts, you know, I just want to concentrate on the first phase, but at this present moment, it's just trading 3 additional lots. And the first phase is essentially 8 frontage lots. But you've got that. So I guess, you can make a request within reason, through Glenn, and we'll do the best to accommodate.
I think everybody can sense my dilemma here, not knowing how it might be developed. What we could do, we were talking about the subdivision map, adding the e-pods, adding the drainage, the contours. We could also show some future stormwater management areas on that subdivision map to accommodate future development so that we would be fully BEC compliant, if it ever moved forward.
Right.
If we ever get to that point.
At what point after these next few lots? So let's talk about the next lot, if there is one. Which one would that be?
So it's hard to say if it's going to be the corner lot referred
Okay.
to as 5, or, will my wife and I be able to, tackle this, development of 8?
Okay, so that's really the thing you're fighting against, where to go next.
Yeah, I don't know, and there's also a possibility that it could take a long time. I don't know, it's hard to speak for uncertainty, because the only thing I can say is, it's taken a while to even get this second meeting to talk about creating, 3 additional lots past lot 1. So
What if we did a sketch plan for the 8 lots?
Mhm.
What if we backed off the whole max density thing, potentially, just floating this out there?
Yeah, that's,
And instead, we did a sketch just for the 8 lots on the frontage, showing the subdivision infrastructure that would serve those 8 lots. Is that, I'm just
Right,
sort of putting an idea out there.
that's what I think is, yeah,
Well,
that sounds
that's all
reasonable.
right. So I'm not the engineer, maybe I should talk a little less, but creating the sketch plan for 8 lots, it's another concept map, which is enhancing the one that we have, I believe, right? Because we're not submitting applications to create tax IDs, which, then you lose an agricultural exemption on a, density of less than 1 acre. So I can't, I'm not gonna put an application and subdivide 8 parcels off the master plan. So I guess we can put a concept map together, which is this, and produce it. And Glenn may be able to, address Tobo, which is a little bit in these, lines here, but I don't know what we can give you. I'm just saying, you'll have to give us specific information that's needed within, respect of, there's a lot of uncertainty.
You've given us a lot of information here.
Yeah, I will
And a
say,
lot of different things to think about. What are you thinking, Don?
this, the code, if you look at it, the sketch code is pretty clear about what's required of it. And I'm assuming it's pretty close to what's required of preliminary. But I'm not totally sure about that. I haven't dug into it.
Right.
And I don't know that that's even the answer. I'm just trying to bridge the gap between the max density 23 lot plan that we were concerned about and the 3 more lots. Is there sort of a middle ground we can look at here, since he doesn't seem to really necessarily have a plan or an intent to go all the way as it stands.
So, and I think we're gonna need a little bit more time to actually think about this, but at some point, maybe the condition would be any lots past 8 would have a specific type of infrastructure. So if all of a sudden he decided he did want to put in another lot, like lot number 9 and 10, that if he wanted to do that, in order to do that, it needed to have maybe public water, sewer, I don't know, but maybe that would be somewhere in the middle so that he could maybe get these going. But we don't have to worry about anything beyond that, because we have a condition that we would be protecting ourselves in those other properties down the road. I don't know if that's even something.
I'm not sure. It seems, I struggle with saying the 9th lot needs this, that, or the other.
Right.
Because we don't necessarily know where that lot's gonna be.
Right, and what's gonna be with that, yeah.
But with at least the 8, like Jason was saying, we can have like a SWIP concept, put a pond somewhere. If they're saying there's gonna be water up in the corner there, show the pipe, show how far down it's gonna go, things like that. Those will effectively, in a sense, be like conditions for those next lots that are coming up.
Right.
So we can at least get that far. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if he shows us the concept with water and stormwater pond for lots 1 through 8, then when they come back to build those lots, now we have a sketch plan that says, here's all the stuff we sketched out.
Right.
So now that you want to build lot, the 4th or the 5th lot, we need a pond or
Right.
something along those lines. I just don't know what the trigger point is for the pond. It's probably maybe it's the 5 acres.
Yeah, it's a 5 acres.
Yeah, I would guess right now with the 4 lots, the Clark lot and the additional 3 lots, we're gonna be up in the neighborhood of maybe 2.8 acres, something like that. We're looking at about 0.65 acres for these two, well, the 2 battle lots, and there's the other lot has about 6.5, I think. So it's 1.95, and with the Clark, I would guess they were a little bit under an acre, so I guess they about 2.8, something like that, total disturbance. So eventually you will exceed the 5 acre limit if development continues in the future on other lots. So that's what I'm saying, we could show a pond on the sketch plan for a couple of ponds.
If you can show the overall, just take it at the LiDAR, just put that on there.
Oh, yeah,
Aren't you having a grade and put a bunch of fill on those lots?
a bunch of what?
Fill?
On these lots we're working on here?
Yeah, any of those?
No, what
No.
we're hoping there's enough excavation for the basement to fill in around the house. We go a walkout on one, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I might ask for Glenn is to see the limit of disturbance, like
Okay.
sort of question the 1.3. I don't want to split hairs on this. Discuss that, but just given the amount of earthwork, I'd almost suspect that the entire site would be disturbed at some point during the project. I don't want to get into a back and forth with that right now.
One of Cora's comments was that the nearest fire hydrant is over 2,000 feet away. The pond,
Can help with that.
right, that could be useful for fire suppression. Also, so you kind of do double duty.
Yeah, it's a great point to bring up. I know on previous developments we just saw, there was we required them to actually construct a pond for fire suppression. And I think I saw a similar comment that Corey's the code enforcement officer, fire review, was not sure if you had in consideration that fire suppression. I think that's the other-
We haven't got any specific direction from Corey or the fire marshal and what would be required here. I mean, there's a number of ways. Some towns, I mean, what we're proposing right now without a sprinkler system, with just wells, and you find other towns, they want to see a sprinkler system, and you can utilize a well for a sprinkler system. It doesn't take a lot of reserved water, so you get a storage tank in the basement with another pump down there for a sprinkler system in the house. But again, every town is different. We're trying to think what we're doing over in
Right, so
Pittsburgh now.
there is a continuous creek on this parcel of land, which, yes, it's not a pond, but it is water that the fire department can tap into, and where they awful close. And I would argue that, across the street, everything that has been developed, they don't have access to a creek, nor do they have, fire hydrants, because there's no public water. Although, if we can get these 3 approved, it's more than likely that you're assisting me to be able to develop lot 8 sooner, where we're moving the water line. And of course, then you can require a hydrant somewhere on that public water line. So I'm really helping the whole community with moving that water line. And with that, you're helping me getting these 3 approved, sooner than later.
Anybody else have any other questions, anything that they'd like to ask or add at this point? I think that we have a lot to consider here. I think you guys have a lot to not a lot, but a little bit of work to do. Do you think you would be able to get that together by our next meeting? As I know time is of
Is
the
that in
essence.
2 weeks, the next meeting? Somewhat.
The next one is gonna be September 21st, if you wanna come to that, or if you wanna do it when you're coming in with the other sites, the Ridgecrest sites, and that's on October 9th. Entirely,
Yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure how fast we can pull this together.
because they would need time to review it, you know what I mean? There would
Okay.
have to be, like, realistically, because you can't give it all this information to the board the
Right.
night, 2 nights before, I mean, they need
A good solid week at
Good
least to really consider and really take a look at it and then be able to bounce things off of Jason and Don and Earl, our water guy.
Well, let's be a little more specific then. What is it exactly? We've kind of found some things.
We
around,
have.
but what is it that we're actually asking them to come back with?
I would like to see a conceptual site plan showing your 8 lots, and it can be simple too, just schematic. It doesn't have to have a lot of engineering on it. Your amount of acres you're proposing for each lot and the boundaries, pretty much. And honestly, I'll just will say, I have no issues with developing those 8 lots. It makes a lot of sense actually to me, because you have some development right across the way. I like the idea of keeping the open farmland. If you wouldn't develop that, it would be a really great thing in my opinion, but I think for me, just the concept of your 8 lots. And we're planners, so I understand you say, I don't know the future, but we can't approve something that we don't see on
No,
paper.
I
So
understand. It's great. Yeah, I love the farm field, so that's likely never going to go away, especially with the incentive of the agricultural exemption. So yes, we can meet the concept map request of the frontage lots without problem, I believe, in a pretty quick time frame.
What would you like to see on there also?
The topo of the property.
Nicole, do you have anything?
Well, I mean, just the obvious comment that in 2017, we came to 23 lot subdivisions. There was a plan, and that this plan was just shown to us this evening with the 8 lots. So I feel like it's doable to ask for that. And it's somewhere, someone has it. So
Right.
I feel like it should be shared.
Sorry, sharing the 23 met.
No, the 8 lots.
The 8
The
lots.
ones you
Yeah.
just-
Yeah,
they're
this one.
conceptual.
We'll get
It
that
has
to you.
be-
Your
Yeah.
phase one.
Got it, thanks, yes, I agree. Good.
Jason, what would you suggest?
I'd also like to see like the potential for water, those feedlots. I think once we have that. we
The
can
stormwater, the runoff?
And water main.
Oh, and the water main.
I think once we see that, get an idea of what it would look like. I read together.
Right. And work towards a preliminary approval or even a preliminary and final, depending on what we've got.
When you're doing that, have a look at, there's a distinction here I don't know that the board is aware of. There's our code actually, there's a concept, which is in our case, kind of a term of art. It's just, I don't know, a draft, an idea, concept. May not necessarily have any binding effect. Then there's a sketch plat, which has more of a binding effect. Something we could use on the next lot, for example. We could say, here's what we plan, where's the water, where's the pond, for example.
Right.
It's here on this map. If it's a concept, I think it becomes a little more ambiguous if we can use that in that way.
So you're suggesting a sketch plan?
I'm asking the question for really for this reason, because I'm not an engineer, maybe you can pull up the code, just real quick, it's 226-17. Just because there are some requirements in order for the sketch plat. Concept map is just whatever, show us a
We
picture.
prefer the concept.
Yeah. And while you might prefer that, I don't know how what I'm saying is I don't know if that's going to serve what it is that we're
Down the
looking
road,
for
right.
necessarily, but maybe it's enough for now. I don't want to, I'm not sure.
I feel like we've never seen the concept on paper, hardline drawn. So for me, I can start there, but then I'd like to see it, become something more binding. But I've never seen it other than the sketch that was just passed around now.
I mean, in a sense, that kind of, I don't want to say that is a concept.
And it's really rough.
Hard to see actually,
Really
but-
rough.
But let's let Jason take a quick look. I'm curious, while we're all here, It's, you see it's 17 around it.
Yeah, topographic survey showing ground contours, parcels, proposed water source, water supply method, sewage disposal, station who will be on the water source. I think those are all viable. I don't think we need to see proposed contours. We just want to see the existing contours where buildings could potentially be located.
There's also a waiver ability here. I wonder if we can have like a sketch light where we waive some of the more if needed, we could waive some of the more difficult requirements. Again, because the issue coming in here was, what do we do with this plan we had in 2017?
Right.
And now in 2025, when they come in, right, to
Right,
build lot 5, we're gonna be in the same position,
right.
God willing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we can maybe get to like a sketch black and white kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think we need something to be able to hold them to in however many years and then come back and say, well, we changed that, we're gonna do this instead.
Right.
Well, I think having something like.
Something more binding.
And I don't think that necessarily means, I mean, I think there can be a discussion there. If there's a sketch plat and they want to do a different plan, by all means, submit a new plan, but we're starting with a new plan at that point.
Right.
I think that may be an option. It's just, we wouldn't be starting from 0. Or we wouldn't be starting with a question mark like we are today, where it's like, what do we do with this 2017 concept slash sketch plat? It actually says sketch on it.
This one?
Yeah, it says sketch map. Not the one you
Oh,
gave me,
this
the
one.
The one from 2017.
Okay.
Does say sketch
Yes,
plat.
it does.
Yeah, that was what was recorded of me back in 2017. I think the only person still in front of me, from 17 to now is Earl. So if you, Earl, you're doing something right. But anyways, I'm sorry, but Jason, I understand you want to, understand the water line, and I daydream about it. But as far as it would be awesome to build on Lot 8 and to have public water, through Mineral County Water Authority. So, I don't know, it's just a struggle for me to understand that what you're looking for when we're concentrating on Taylor Road, which is so far from the water line, and and I know how much it costs to move water, $40 a foot. It's
Actually, 40, you don't know, it's a lot.
well,
more than $40.
okay, so
Like,
We're not asking.
yes, it's all.
We're not asking.
No, I know, but even to get it to the first lot or whatever, the first lot that I could subdivide off of a mile square, it's about 1,000 feet measuring from a hydrant off of Hopper Hills Way. No less than 800 feet. When I found some blue paint on the road of mile square, and it's awesome to think about it, but even thinking about it does involve so much money to kind of hammer down what we already know, that it's
Alright,
very
Let
expensive.
me interrupt you because we've already
But
heard about the financial concerns. My question for the board, given that concern, is, so I think you have a few options. One option is to waive the requirement that he shows the water source. That's one option altogether. Another option is show both, basically. Show, an and or as such not the end. You're not gonna have a water pipe and a well. But you could show if we have public water here that's coming in, if we have a well, it's gonna be right here. So one option to show both, another option to show neither and put a note that says will be determined in the future. I think what's gonna have to happen here, if we want it to be more of a binding sketch plat than just a sort of an idea that won't matter in 5 years, is have probably Jason and Glenn go through, have hopefully a brief call, go through these requirements, and have Jason, based on our feedback right now, say, do that, and skip that, and skip that, and do that. Don't have to put the water, we don't have to indicate the water source, don't have to do that kind of thing. But we have to have some guidance from the board as to how stringent you want to be on those requirements. And first and foremost, it sounds like the water source is a question mark that
Right.
he's asking. There's some
At this
flexibility.
point, the water stops there. Who knows where the water will be in 5 years?
I think it'll be exactly where it is now.
Maybe.
Unless, you know, we get this project rolling with subdividing these three and it's on good health and the recession doesn't, you know, really put up all the things. There is potential for it to be on 8, but God knows we could have a well because there's nothing wrong with well water in beautiful Mendon, New York. So, I mean, we don't have to force, you know, the concept of us moving water lines on anybody. 'Cause that's
Yeah,
just
I'm
not
not
right.
sure if the town code, I mean, if there's a reduction in lot with public water. I think these lots will all be code compliant without sewer and water. So if they're more demanding, they would meet the criteria.
Perhaps the battles will decide to bring water all the way down to lots 3 and 4. Problem solved.
I was thinking maybe the Battles would just buy all 8 lots and then then you'd have the money to run the water. No such luck, huh? Well, they wouldn't have the money, right? Okay, so somebody won't have the
reason
money.
they probably have the money is they're, you know, geniuses. Like they're calm, cool, collected,
Right.
they're very
So-
professional and they can build awesome houses if you give them the green light.
Right, and so, you know, again, I think we've said this before, we understand the plight that you're in, the
Yeah,
financial plight. But again, as much as we want to sympathize with that, we have to do, we're representing the town, and we have to do what we think is the best
right.
for the town in the big picture. So I'm thinking that, that sketch plate that you two can work on. You, Jason, I just want to say, you can kind of maybe decide what's super important to be on there and what doesn't need to be on there. I don't really know because I'm not, obviously not an engineer, but that's your areas of
I think
expertise.
Jason is probably thinking stormwater management is probably the key issue.
So, right, so you guys can maybe work together to come up with a sketch plan that can be somewhat binding, pretty binding, very binding.
Just for the 8 lots.
Just for the 8 lots. And then in the future, if something were to happen, a new plan would be presented and we would move from there. But for these 8, let's tighten it up so that I know that you're concerned about the money, and I know when you don't have it, it's even a bigger concern. But it may serve you well into the future to have this all laid out. So I know, I don't know I just think that might serve you well as things get moving.
I look forward to seeing the request because I want to see this project continue. But
Okay, so the
You're
request-
hearing the request right now.
So the
Well,
request
yeah,
is,
all right. Glenn has it, I'm sorry, but
so
yeah.
So the
it's-
request-
So we've taken off the water source requirement of moving the public water line. We kind of know a lot of that stuff, so we really can't, you know, come up with much more than what we already know.
right, so, you know, we can sit here and we can go back, but we don't have anything like on paper solid right now to continue this conversation, unfortunately. So if you guys get together, put your 2 brains together, come up with a great sketch plan for us that we can really dig our teeth into and look at.
know what you're.
Do you know what I'm,
Yeah.
right, and then we can move forward from there.
Now, how about these plans? So I mean, we will add some dry wells for the roof drains on these 2 lots. And we will enhance the official subdivision map with contours with E-pods to satisfy the town requirements. Anything else? I mean, are there any comments on the actual proposed development in these 2 lots?
The drainage swales on each lot.
We've got interceptor swales,
You
yeah,
have
running out to the street. Well, in one area, we're taking some of the water behind the building. We're intercepting as much as we can.
I think I'm gonna almost restate what I said earlier, but the plan in 2017, I don't think you were gonna dig all 23 houses at the same time, right? I get it. So there were plans to 1, 2, 3. So like, this is a plan that is not inclusive of what the ultimate plan is. And that's where I'm stuck. I'd love for you to build your home. I live right down the street. Love for you to have water. I live right down the street. But I'm not seeing that. And lack of data to me is not lack of effect. And I think as planners, we would like to know the effect. And this is partial information. And the fact that this little phase one has been shown tonight and we did not have that prior to tonight is confusing because there is a plan. And I guess I just want to know from an engineer's point, the legalities of, right now it's 3 and 4, 5 driveway here, possible, like everything's very vague. You have to appreciate where we're coming from. So I think even if it's just a sketch or whatever verbatim word we want to use, but this is not the plan. This is very today, and it's not, the 23 subdivision or the house that you were going to do was not going to happen all at once. That was, I'm sure, done in phases. So I think we need to see phases. This is, I don't think, complete.
Yeah, Glenn can update our concept maps. So we appreciate that request and we'll accommodate within reason to the best of our ability.
So now should I open the public hearing? Yes? Okay, I almost forgot about that part of it. Okay, so right now I would like to open the public hearing for this subdivision. And, okay, I'm gonna back up here. So we have a subdivision that we're not
Yeah.
ready to approve yet.
Right.
Are we able to even conditionally approve a site plan
No,
without
there's
it?
no-
I mean, it
there's no-
just doesn't even make
no
sense to
parcels.
me.
I was just looking for comments and get any, I was not looking for approval of the site plan tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
But
but
I
I'm just
think-
looking, is there anything else that we need to address on the site plan?
I
Right.
think if we have any substantive comments, he can add them into the plan so that at the next meeting, if there's a chance of getting everything approved, we won't have some things that he's never heard before.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So now we will open the public hearing. And we do have somewhere one letter from a resident that I would like to read into our minutes, if I can find it. Does anybody have their copy? Yeah, sure. I just had it here. I don't know what, too many papers. Okay, you're,
I just had it too.
I'm just thinking about the whole reading thing into the record.
well, I was thinking that too, and that's why I was going to read it verbatim, what they, or not.
It's something we need to decide as a policy matter, I think, whether we're gonna read them or summarize them or just. a
No
lot of-
summarizing
Right, that
tonight.
didn't work out.
No,
Or
that did
just-
not work out.
Or just sort of note that we got it, and it's up to you. I don't,
So you don't think it's a good idea? I don't want to comment all on this letter. I don't want to say what the neighbors.
if someone has an idea,
I would say if they were able to be here, they would have said what is in that letter. Therefore, if you were to read it, what they.
And they
wrote,
asked that we do read it.
I feel as though.
the problem becomes when people just decide, because of that reasoning, we're just not gonna have meetings anymore. We're gonna send you 5-page letters to read. Like, that's the
Well,
policy.
then there's and you know how I am about setting precedent.
Right, so I think in this case, they were unable to attend because of. I'm gonna assume it has something to do with, being in the fire department.
Oh,
Like I said, I think we need to have a policy on how to deal with those things, but we don't have one yet, so
okay.
we're gonna have to do it ad hoc.
Okay, so without a policy in place, this may be the only letter that I read verbatim. I am reading the words, there's no inflection. I am not trying to sway anybody one side of this or the other. So Stephen and Robin Schuler live at 617 Taylor Road, and they wrote this letter. Town of Mendon Planning Board. We've resided at 617 Taylor Road since 1982, just east of the project being considered. Having conversations with the neighbors near me, we're under the impression that one lot that was approved back in 2017 was done so with the understanding that no further development would take place until a plan for the entire parcel. Not having municipal water and gas service has always been part of the rural character of this area. Yet as the character succumbs to development, it seems that some of these services become a necessity. We're not against development, but as this farmland gets carved up, it seems that the additional traffic, drainage with its proximity to state wetlands, water access for fire protection and other utilities should be planned with the whole of the neighborhood in mind. Thanks for your attention, Steve and Robin Schuler.
I will definitely take all of that into consideration. It's well written and thumbs up. I think, we're covering a lot of this together already. So
So is there any other public that would like to be heard, or is there anyone online that wants to be heard? Then I think it would be prudent to leave this meeting open, because this public meeting open, because we still have so much more to discuss. So we'll continue this at our next meeting when you're here. We'll just keep the conversation going in the public hearing open. So, okay. So that's that for right now. It was a long time for us to be talking, but I think that we've all got a better idea now of what we're hoping will happen. And
thank you.
Thank you. We'll go outside now and talk about it.
oh, I'm sure you will. I have no doubt. I have no doubt.
Talking nice here.
No, I'm sure I already know what's gonna be said. I already know.
Thank you.
All right, so now that I don't have my agenda, what's next? General discussion? Okay, any general discussion? Katrina. Let him go so he can talk about things. Okay. Where this is general discussion, and so we'd like to tune into you to.
I was trying to add to it. So, when you have next meeting, which will be the 21st, 2 weeks, is you have Hillary Stock coming in, for an apartment special use permit above what would be Clemenza's, and possibly more.
Possibly.
And I will call that gentleman tomorrow. See what's up.
Okay.
And possibly that, right?
And
Possibly, so I have them there. They don't even know if they're gonna make it for the, October 19th meeting. It's gonna take
Who's
them a
that?
while. Glenn.
So they're not coming back in 2 weeks?
Well, I wasn't allowed to carry on my discussion, so I'm gonna call it tomorrow. And then you'll just get another email from me, so. So,
That's fine.
that's all I got.
Nicole, this is yours. I seem to be very out of my papers today. I don't know how that. Yes, would someone like to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting of the planning board? Nicole, anybody for a second?
Second.
Teresa, yeah. All in favor? Any opposed? I think so. Okay, we're done. Huh?